Hey, everybody, it's Patrick Herbert, your host of New Enlightened Lifestyle Medicine. With me is my co-host, Lynn Settle. How you doing, Lynn?
Good.
Good to see you. And with us today is the world-renowned, world-famous, most amazing Dylan Charles, ladies and gentlemen, from Waking Times. Dylan Charles, how are you doing?
Fantastic. Thank you, Mr. Patrick, for the exaggerated introduction. I appreciate it, though.
Well, you know, Dylan, you've made an impact in both my life and Lynn's life, certain things that we're going to dive into. But, first, I want to say thank you so much for coming on and giving us your time today.
Yeah, right on. It's an honor and pleasure, yeah.
So Dylan Charles, as probably everyone who watches this channel knows, is the creator of Waking Times, also the creator of the podcast Battered Souls, which is pretty much kicking butt, literally. I mean, you're up to how many shows now?
I'm about to publish, I think later today, I'm going to publish the 39th episode.
39th?
Which for a self-published, self-produced operation, I'm proud of that. I'm proud of that I'm maintaining the continuity. But I started it early last year, so it's could be more, could be less, but it keeps getting better for sure.
It does, and you've had some really impressive guests on there, especially Levy. Is that how you pronounce his last name?
Paul Levy, yeah.
Paul Levy of Watiko fame. Yeah, which is funny because I bought that book at the same time you interviewed him.
Oh, really? Just by coincidence?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Nothing happens by coincidence.
I know,
Mr. Herbert. Yeah.
You know, that's what Lynn and I were talking about earlier. I was saying there is no such thing as coincidence. So, and now you've branched off into doing self-mastery and personal development, which is that's quite a big undertaking, but you have the credentials, you have the skill, you have the knowledge, and you have the background in order to do this. That's one of the things I wanted to talk to you about. Is your where does this all come from? Okay, so I know your background with regards to Waking Times, and there's the road to Battered Souls, but the road to personal development. Can you start where this all came about?
Well, like a lot of people, Patrick, and thanks for the question. It's a fun topic for me to discuss. But like a lot of people, I hit rock bottom. I had what you would refer to as the dark night of the soul. That for me was in 2004. And folks, I'll tell you, it's overrated. Hitting rock bottom is highly overrated. So if you can stay out of rock bottom, stay out of rock bottom. But for me, it was a culmination of poor habits and very little understanding of who I was and what my purpose was in this world, and really just a lack of direction in my life. And so really, when I look back upon it, I realized that I was just kind of doing what the tribe was doing, just whatever I thought the cool kids were up to, that's what I would do as well. And I've told this story in an event I've held called The Story of Your Hypnosis. But my whole past, which was, I don't want to make it too dramatic, but divorced family, some drama and chaos and anger and stuff in the house, and, alcohol abuse and cigarettes and all that kind of stuff. Very, very typical stuff. It seems very typical to me, but ultimately it led me down to just where I feel like I was lost. And so when I was 26, I think it was, I finally hit rock bottom. So poor habits, meaning my diet was terrible. I was drinking the soda pops and the fast food. Actually, I had been off fast food for a while, but I was drinking just the restaurant food, the snack foods and all that garbage. I had been, smoking cigarettes, smoking weed all the time, really, really hooked on alcohol. It was part of the culture. Everybody drinks. I was working in the video game industry at the time. So it was, the culture was very sedentary. Spent a lot of times I was working 70, 80 hours a week, sitting in the studio, working on video games. And all this just came crashing down on me when you combine that also with the fact that I was a drug addict. At the time, my drug of choice was methamphetamines. That was the main thing I did, but I was into party drugs like ecstasy, cocaine, all the pills that you could do. They have fentanyl now, but back then it was OxyContin, Vicodins and stuff like that. We also did all the Valiums, what are those called? The Xanaxes, all this stuff. We turned basically everything into a party. And so all that came crashing down on me in 2004. And I was hooked on pornography too, which is that's its own private hell for sure. And so I sought help. I went to my doctor for help. I came clean with some people in my family, my wife. I was already married at the time. And I came clean with them, which automatically began to help out, just being honest and coming out of my isolation. But I went to my doctor for help, and he wanted to put me on antidepressants. He sent me to a psychiatrist, and the psychiatrist put me on, in the first visit, he prescribed me 7 different medications to take every day. That's a whole nother story. But when I walked out of the doctor's office, when I walked out of the psychiatrist's office, I was like, man, that guy was crazy. He gloated about his wealth. He bragged about his participation in the Vietnam War and being a fighter bomber pilot and literally killing thousands of people. And so I walked out of his office with free samples of 7 pills a day, with this crazy schedule about when to take more of this one and less of that one, and what to take when I wanted to sleep and what to take when I wanted to wake up. And it just was so insane to me that when I walked out of his office, just something came into me, and it was like, throw this garbage in the trash. Like, you got to go this alone. There's nobody here that can help you. And so I threw that stuff in the trash before I even got in my car, and never have taken any psychotropic drugs, as they call them, the pharmaceutical garbage. I don't take that stuff anymore. And a week later, I was at work at the video game studio, and somebody that I worked with, I noticed he was always walking down the hall carrying swords and kwandaos. If you know what that is, it's a long, like, pole with a big giant blade on it. Mm-hmm. These are Chinese martial arts weapons, swords, nunchucks, that sort of thing. And so I asked him what he was up to, and he invited me to come to the Kung Fu, the dojo. And so it was interesting. I started Kung Fu, and behind me, I have a bunch of my journals from back then in the day, but I was looking through them recently. And 3 weeks into my journey of Kung Fu, I wrote myself some notes about this. And it was like the depression that I was experiencing that brought me to rock bottom. That seemed to just be gone in 3 weeks of training Kung Fu, literally 3 weeks, Patrick. And I had no desire to smoke cigarettes anymore. So I threw the cigarettes out. I didn't smoke again for 5 or 6, or I think it was like 6 years, and these are things that my doctor couldn't help me with. In just a matter of a few short weeks, turning my body around, just limiting the junk food and garbage in my diet just really set me on the right path. So that's where it all started. And that was in 2004. So I'm close to 20 years. I've still practiced martial arts all the time, especially Kung Fu. I've done a lot of different martial arts. I've got some black belts and various colored belts of all sorts of things. And I've learned a lot through the practices of Tai Chi and Qigong. But that's really where my journey started, was with hitting the bottom and realizing that the only way out was through, and that the only person that could get me there was myself, and that I was the one responsible. I had to take responsibility for my health, my happiness, my state of mind, and all that. So that's the beginning.
That's incredible. It really is, because there's so many parallels, as I've pointed out in the past, between our stories, and also Lynn too. We've all followed these same kind of self-destructive patterns, which I firmly believe that we're all programmed to do. And of course, it brings us, we get wrapped up to it, we get dragged down. And what better place to launch to where you're at today than to have experienced it? Funny story about the psychiatrist, but unsurprising, considering I firmly believe that they might just be as insane as the people that they claim to treat, potentially. I mean, but and I know there are good ones and everything like that. But all right, so now, when you began this personal development course and self-mastery and everything like that, and you get you've got tons of people coming on, tons of people with different backgrounds, tons of people with different experiences. Now, where do you get the because you're like a Zen master, you all of that stuff,
I don't know about that.
You're able to dial everything down to and you were a great help to me in dissecting my mental. Is this just per your observation? Is this a part of your training, or is this some sort of a natural insight that you have that's kind of governing and overseeing those processes as you start beginning to coach someone?
That's an interesting and deep question. I think I'll have to answer by kind of telling them just a little bit more about my journey and my background, because I don't have any, I'm not like a trained psychiatrist or anything like that. Mm-hmm. Something happens when you take responsibility for yourself, when you decide that, you're the only one that can save you. Right. Mm-hmm. And it's like Carl Jung talked about, the synchronicities in life. There's things that appear to be coincidences, but they're really not. I mean, you mentioned one of those at the beginning of the show, but with just receiving, what was it you said you received? You got Paul Levy's book right at the same time. There are no coincidences. Yeah. And so and I've found this to be true. This has happened several times in my life. I found this to be true, that when you really make a firm commitment to something, especially when you make a commitment to yourself and to doing something that you want to do with your life, in other words, pursuing something that your heart seeks, that your heart desires, and shoveling all the crap out of the way, everybody else's opinions, judgments, all the limitations, all the economic, perceived economic restrictions out of the way, then something happens. You dial into a certain sort of universal cosmic energy. And so It's almost like that saying, if you take the leap, you will be supported, something along those lines. But that's what happened for me. As soon as I made the decision to myself, like everything started to change, and all the right information, all the right people, all the right experiences, and all the right opportunities just came falling right into my lap. All the money fell into place, everything that I needed in order to step on and like pursue my personal path. So for me, it was, I was very intrigued by Tai Chi and Qigong, the inner internal martial arts that are part of Kung Fu, part of the schools of Chinese martial arts. And so reading and studying those, I was able to very quickly like have very cosmic experiences, experiencing the flow of chi, the flow of chi through my body, what a lot of people would call Kundalini energy, feeling, having just naturally inducing some of these experiences that really reconnect one to their sense of wonder, reconnect you to the magic of being alive. And once someone really connects to that, it's like inspiration leads you from there. Inspiration takes on its own momentum. And so I left my hometown of Austin, Texas, that I lived in for 32 years. And we moved up to Washington State for a year and followed some things there, but ended up ultimately in Costa Rica. My children and I lived there for 7 years. And it was the same thing where along my path, it was like the right books would appear, the right meditations, the right leaders would show up. I would end up with the right masters at Kung Fu schools or what have you. And ultimately in Costa Rica, I really found myself in the realm of plant medicine, shamanic plant medicines. So first I was really called by spirit to experience ayahuasca, with the tradition that I'm part of, the Sequoia tradition. We refer to it as Yahe. And so I've spent many, many years studying and drinking Yahe with traditional elders of the Amazon, Sequoia elders of the Amazon, and they're quite renowned. It's one of the only living non-syncretic ayahuasca drinking traditions on the planet, meaning that their tradition that they follow, the way that they conduct ceremonies, the way that they prepare the brew, what they're seeking in the experience, the way that they communicate with the different spirits and entities you meet in the experience. It's very original to their own culture. It's not crossbred with Catholicism, or it's not taken over by like Santo Daime or something. It hasn't been turned into church. It hasn't been colonialized in any way. So it's a very raw, very, very, very deep, very, very magical tradition. That did a lot for me personally, because I was able really to connect with my soul and have my soul really connect to the earth and understand that my position, as a being on this earth, is I'm part of the earth and really part of the whole living organism of life itself. And then I was drawn into the world of the shamanic plant medicine Iboga, which is an African plant medicine, which is similar to ayahuasca in the sense that it's like one of the most powerful entheogenic spiritual experiences that a person can have. It's absolutely, it's way beyond the realm of like magic mushrooms or LSD or ketamine or anything like that. And the spiritual tradition involved with that, the Bwiti tradition, really guides me a lot today. I mean, it's a very simple tradition. It's an oral tradition, and the focus is on using life to study life, like to use your life as like the main focus of your study, right? Mm-hmm. So how do you relate to life? How do you be happy? How do you tell what's real from what's fake? And it sounds almost counterintuitive going to a psychedelic and theogenic plant medicine to learn the truth about what's real and what's fake for you, but that experience in particular is very keen on blasting through like your belief systems, helping you to see through to the truth of your belief systems, and a lot of those that we're infused with, indoctrinated with, that we've been patterned and programmed with by school, media, all this culture. They just really, a lot of those beliefs don't support a healthy, happy, holistic, powerful way of being in this world. And so these two plant medicine traditions were absolutely fundamental to me. I started fundamental to my understanding of what self-mastery is, my understanding of what personal development is. In 2011, I started Waking Times with an interest on kind of helping people to see that the world was not what it seems, right? It's full of conspiracy. It's full of corruption, greed. It's full of lies. It's full of half-truths. I mean, there's a lot going on in our world. But the thing is, for people who care about that sort of thing, for people who are actually concerned about the quality of the world that we live in, it's easy to get stuck in those stories. It's easy to find yourself, continually looking outside of yourself for not just like the answers, but also to the problems. It's easy to be glued to or attracted to the problems of the world. And so I wanted Waking Times to be a place where we could address those problems, but also remind people that their best way of being service in aiding or healing those problems is to heal themselves, is to work on themselves. And so it took me a really long time to understand what it means to heal yourself or work on yourself, because I think, you guys would agree that that's kind of a pretty common spiritual axiom, heal yourself, be the change that you want to see in the world, that sort of thing. But what it really means, what it ultimately after, and let me just say this one other thing. All along my journey, I've been married. I've been married for 24, almost 25 years now. And we have 3 children, 17, 13, and 10. So I live in a house full of mirrors, I have, these people around me that can reflect back to me so I can learn and always be growing. So that's been a big part of my evolution and a big part of my self-requirement, that I take responsibility for my actions. I take responsibility for my emotional sobriety. I take responsibility for how I show up for other people. And it's in large part because I've been so close to my family. I have such a very tight-knit nuclear family. So, but ultimately what I've really come to realize is that it's easy to get lured both by the conspiracy, the darkness in the world. It's also easy to get lured by the potential for the light, right? To become a light warrior, to be a new age person, to seek communion with star people and all these sort of fanciful things. And I certainly know people that appear for sure to have a direct connection to some of these higher beings, to some of these, galactic federation type stuff. But for the most part, I've found that the people who are in need of the work are, they're 3D folks. Patrick, Lynn, they're down here in the 3D world trying to be happy, trying to stay positive, trying to make a positive impact in whatever way they can. Mm-hmm. And also trying to be leaders for their family and, leaders in business or whatever it is that they're doing. And so it's really helped me to see for myself, taking a very grounded, practical approach to spirituality is really, I see it as the most just useful thing that I can bring that I can offer this world right now. Just being in touch with the real world and understanding that it's within our nature to pursue God, right? But we have to function on this world right here. And so if we pursue God in ourselves on a daily basis, that means just working to be your best self, working to develop ever increasing awareness of your emotional states, where you operate from, what you bring into the world, what drags you down, like what colors your thoughts, how easy it is to be taken over by your thoughts and these sorts of things, like this multitude of experiences that we call human life, right? So to me, it's very important to be practical about this approach. I can't just sit and meditate my time away anymore. I have people relying on me, depending on me, and that goes for my family as well as the world. We need leaders right now, and I feel it's my responsibility to step into that role. And so that's really where I'm at today, is just bringing all of my experience, wisdom, and knowledge. Like I said, a lot of it's colored from martial arts, which I think has really, really helps me to really appreciate how energy moves in the world and how energy moves through my life and the lives of others. And I think that's a great place to start. And so when I'm coaching in the various ways that I do, I lean on this story. I lean on my story because as one of my coaches and mentors would say, I've been through a lot. I'm the king of self-sabotage, right? I've done it all. I've self-sabotaged myself in every way possible. And so now I focus on helping people overcome self-sabotage and then finding and stepping onto their path of self-mastery, which means different things for different people. But so my process is very it's scientific in one way. When we're dealing with self-sabotage, we look very closely at how the mind works, especially the subconscious mind. But when I'm working with on the level of self-mastery, it's a very intuitive approach. I just basically make a conscious move to shift over to the right side of my brain and open up my heart when I speak with people on this level. And it's very much like working with the shamanic plant medicine of Boga. You get your mind out of the way and you allow space for your intuition to pull the answers from your heart. And so that's really what I do when I coach people. I sit and listen and I express what I feel needs to be expressed when it needs to be expressed, always being mindful of the fact that if I am coming from a place of logical thought or analytical thinking, then I'm doing a disservice to a client of mine, because I'm not a psychoanalyst or a psychiatrist or whatever, right? It's a heart-based intuitive approach to helping people find within themselves like the knowledge and power and the path that they seek. So that's kind of the long version.
No, that's great. That's that's a beautiful, well-rounded answer. I mean, I couldn't have asked for anything better. That's the whole thing, is showcasing because I know you personally, so I know all this. I know we have had similar experiences. I know where you're coming from.
Yeah.
And I know that, I know about you trekking through the jungles and, doing the ayahuasca ceremonies where, we had the funny little story about my experience with dimethyltryptamine, but, so that's just remarkable. I mean, this is when it comes to, if I'm an individual seeking help, the minute you said you were doing personal transformation, it was a no-brainer. I'm like, hell yeah. And the same with Lynn and countless others. And this, I wanted to hand this over to Lynn real quick because he is one of your, what would you call it, a student, or would you
client, maybe just someone something along. Let's keep it simple,
Okay.
Yeah, I'm working through understanding my new identity and all this. So I don't know what to think of myself yet, Patrick. I'm not a teacher. I'm definitely not a guru. I don't know. I feel very, very humbled to work with people like Lynn.
Well, in that text message when I sent you that night, and you noticed that I called you my inspiration because you really are. You're a very inspirational individual.
So I appreciate that. Yeah.
That's a big part, at least for me. I know we all have, very subjective experiences, but for me, that was, I just saw you doing all this stuff. I mean, I was inspired by Waking Times for years before I ever reached out to you. So, Lynn, as a client of Dylan over here, can you had given me some really good, or you had said some really beautiful things about him before he had gone into this video chat. Can you emphasize that or build on that, what you had said with regards to him being able to pinpoint?
Yes, I'm about halfway through. Is that right, Dylan? The program right now?
We just did week 4 of a 6-week journey that we're on.
Okay, we're a little over half. And well, I've always been, kind of a introspective person, and I've done a lot of new age stuff and, research and meditating and all that. But, I still I was missing something, just something wasn't connecting. And I was struggling with that. And then Dylan's program came along and thought about it. And I said, well, let's shake it up a little bit. Maybe, he can, kickstart something different, so, and I have to say, you've been, I don't know if it's just your intuition or whatever, but you've been saying the things I needed to hear.
Yeah.
I needed to hear about possibilities. I mean, it's obvious, possible, everything's possible, but I needed someone to tell me that, or what could happen,
Right.
Well, you got all this stuff going on, and could it go away? Well, it could, and then I ran with the ball from there. And, and then I'd emailed you this morning, another epiphany I really had where, I loved the I could thing that you did. And I think that's critical. I don't know if it has how much bearing it will have on others as you go forward with your coaching, but for me, it was perfect. And so I just ran with the ball with I could do anything. I could this, I could that, I could whatever. And then it came to, I could be happy all the time.
Very possible. Yeah.
I don't need something to happen to make me happy. I don't need my wife to be nice to me, or I don't need whatever, I don't need it to be Friday and now it's a weekend to be happy. I can just be happy anytime I want. And I realized that could happen. And it was eye-opening, for me.
That's really cool to hear, Lynn. I mean, like, I talk with a lot of people all over the world kind of all the time. And, some of them jump on and as my clients, and we get to work at a more deeper level, but people in general, they're stuck right now. There's a lot of outside pressure pushing down on people. And so I think that's really exacerbated. If you couple that with the fact that a lot of possibilities are cut off from us now, travel, a lot of people are in places where there's lots of lockdown rules and this and that or whatever. So it's kind of like we were free and easy before, and now we really have to face the fact that we were just distracted and entertained by our environment. And so now people are really stuck. They're wondering what their purpose is. And, this culture doesn't really, proliferate the idea that as unique individual human beings, we have a path. We're supposed to be on a path. We have a higher part of ourselves that knows that path for us. We have an original soul somewhere we're connected to somehow. And even if the connection is broken or weak, right? There's a part of us that has a unique ideal, a unique path, a unique vision for what our life should be about. And so a lot of people are stuck, they're stagnant, and when I first talked to Lynn, he said that he felt very stagnant in his life. which is a word that people use to describe the flow of energy. If you were to go to an acupuncturist, they talk about your chi being stagnant or stuck in this place or that place of your body. I mean, it's when you're looking at the natural, the Tao of things, like things are always in flow, they're always changing, they're always in flux. And when things are stuck, it creates anomalies, it creates, dysfunction. And whether that's in the body, whether your organs aren't functioning properly, develop a cancer, develop an ulcer or something like that. It's the same way in life. It's easy to develop a surly, perspective on life. It's easy to develop a restricted perspective. It's easy to develop an uninformed or misinformed story about what your life is really about or what it could be about. And so, the program that Lynn's in is called Your Original Soul. And I'm going to be starting up another one in January. I'll make sure you guys get links for that. But it's something that I'm going to perfect over 2022. And really what the idea is that we first learn to listen to how you talk to yourself, right? What's going on? What's the conversation that you have with yourself, right? I mean, that's where the rubber meets the road. Like your lower self and your higher self are always communicating. But what are they saying, right? Who's in charge? Who's driving the boat? So we start there and we look at that. And then we really put a lot of attention on developing the awareness of your emotional state, right? What emotional state are you operating from? And one thing I'm really keen on, especially in reference, to reference the work of Waking Times. I mean, we've talked for years about this idea of higher consciousness, of a shift, right? A global shift, global transformation, this sort of stuff. And it's real easy to look at it in terms that are difficult to grasp. They're difficult to actually touch. They're difficult actually to bring into your life and put into play in your life. And so I'm an avid reader of personal development and spirituality and just like biographies and things, like anything that'll really teach me more about human beings and what they're about. I love people. That's what I love more than anything else. And so we start to look at, I'm very fond of a model. It's called the Hawkins model of the levels of consciousness. So it basically shows you that attaining higher consciousness can be measured, right? You can tell where you're at on the scale of consciousness just by looking at the mood you're in, the emotion that you're living into, right? So in any given day, we can live all up and down the scale of consciousness, right? And so the better we get at monitoring our emotional states and pulling ourselves out of the apathy, the hopelessness, what's the point? What's the point of trying anything? It's COVID right now. What's the point of doing anything new? Once we can bring ourselves out of that, then we get into the things like fear. What are we afraid of? Are we afraid of death? Are we afraid of virus? Apathy, fear, anxiety, self-doubt, worry, concern, desire, even, and anger. Some of these emotional states really represent a contractive state of consciousness. And so I think it's very, very effective for people. And I've seen this over and over again with my coaching practice and working with clients, is that once you can help someone to recognize that life happens at courage and above, right? Life starts at courage, and I have a teacher that's helped me to understand this as well. Life begins at courage. If you can pull yourself into a state of courage, right? A willingness, right? Willingness is actually a little bit higher up the chain, but the courage to try, the courage to have hope, the courage to believe that something's possible and to make an effort, then you're actually operating from a level of consciousness that represents an expansive state of consciousness. And from there, it goes up, it rises up above courage to willingness to, joy, peace, love, these high-minded states. But if you can get to courage, a whole lot of life begins to become possible for you. You begin to see how you can participate, whereas you thought whereas you may have thought you couldn't or weren't allowed or didn't allow yourself to participate in aspects of life. And so to me, it's a really, really grounded, effective way of helping people to realize that higher consciousness is at our fingertips at any moment. And there's a skill that you can use to get there. And if you use that skill, the more that you use that skill, the more that you operate from these elevated states of consciousness, the more that life responds to you. Okay. So you become attractive to the experiences, to meeting the people, to the opportunities that are really going to help your vision, like your amazing life, unfold in its easy, it's flowing path. So that's kind of an explanation of what we're doing with what I'm working on with Lynn. And so we're also going to basically spend some time, Lynn, figuring out, what your strengths and what your weaknesses are and honing those in and coming up with the plan. So when you start 2022, you have a real clear vision of what you want to work on. And then I want to talk to you also about some accountability for that, how to hold yourself accountable through the year. So what I've found is that with the isolation and just the circumstances we're all in, with so much human contact being cut off and restricted, it's really, really important to allow yourself to find a tribe. It's really, really important to allow yourself to find like a high-minded, highly elevated tribe that can help you along your path. It's really important to find a guide. It's really important to like allow yourself, like humble yourself to get a guide. I mean, I've done that over and over again the last couple of years. Been like, you know what? I don't have all the answers and I'm stuck, right? Find somebody that's not stuck, right? Find somebody that's moved through the challenges that you're working on and ask for their help, ask for their mentorship, ask for their guidance, because I think that really is the calling right now with this COVID stuff, is to evolve in practical ways. And a lot of times that means just like finding the resources, finding the people, finding the willpower, finding the desire, finding the drive to make yourself better. And so that's what I really am helping people out with these days.
That's awesome. I wanted to ask both of you guys something, and this is with regards to Lynn and you had said that one of these items was you have the right to be happy. Now, I've been through, as we all have, surprisingly, after talking to Lynn, talking to you, Dylan, and, we come from these very similar backgrounds in terms of information that we might have been led to, be either by our higher selves or some other type of guidance. For instance, Joseph Murphy and The Power of Your Subconscious Mind. Now, I know for a fact that all of us have read this book at one point in our life. So we are all in a way kind of like-minded individual with a certain amount of background. Now, Dylan, my question to you with regards to that happiness factor, because for me, it's after going through everything I've gone through, my thing is that happiness is quite literally a choice, but there has to be, but I mean, it's so easy to say, you can say that, right? I could say it's a choice, but that choice is weighted in circumstantial, inner world messes. Let's just say that might be a factor in contributing to that choice being a little bit more complicated than being able to switch that on or off, right? So it's not so much binary. Otherwise, it'd be an easy job. You'd be able to just say, well, if someone comes to you and says, I have problems, and you could just go, well, don't have problems. And that is the answer, legitimately, isn't it, at the end of the day? But you can't, there's more to it. So I was wondering, in something like that, you have the right to be happy. So what is it that keeps us from being able to make that choice or see it in a binary way like that? Is it our own world of crap? Is it right? It is, because ultimately it's us, and it's everything that's going on in our inner world that will prevent us, so even right down to our beliefs individually.
Right. Can I jump in real quick?
Yeah, for sure.
Something else I emailed to Dylan was, he talked about when he was on one of his ayahuasca journeys of being in a hammock, he was undergoing the internal conflicts or whatever it is, that it drives from using that, and he was struggling and making, I guess, annoying other people. And the shaman came over and just asked him a basic question in Spanish, but is it hard or is it easy? Well,
he asked me how I was doing, and I said, I said in Spanish, it's super difícil, which means it's super hard.
Yeah.
And so then he looked me square in the eye and said, super difícil or super fácil, which translates to super difficult or super easy.
Yeah.
It's one of those things, like, just simple common sense, or simple, just a shift in perspective on something can completely pull you out of whatever you're going through, but to answer your question, Patrick, I mean, if happiness was a choice that was easy to make, I mean, wouldn't everybody be happy? Right. I think that's kind of what you were getting at. I mean, but that applies to anything, anything that's good for us, whether it's to, just be our healthy selves, right? Take care of our body in the right way, right? If those are choices that we can make, it would be easy to just make those choices, right? Like it's a no-brainer that's the best course of action for ourselves. But look at the state that people are in. Look at the things that they're living through, right? So we take the most antidepressants, the most, eat the most toxic food ever, so people don't make choices on the behalf of their happiness. So something else is going on there. So when you look more deeply at that, and this is the thing, this is really the reason why I'm also a certified FFSS self-sabotage coach. teach a very specific program of helping people to understand how self-sabotage works, what it is, what the foundations are of it, like how it gets into your mind. And essentially self-sabotage would be any behavior that contradicts your goals, right? That contradicts your aspirations to live your best self. So just like you said, if happiness is a choice, and I choose to, get loaded on Friday night and pay the price, and I do that over and over again, I keep choosing that reality, right? I'm not going to be happy. My relationships are going to suffer. I'm going to end up isolating myself as an alcoholic. My health is going to suffer, right? So I'm not making a choice to be happy. So something else is going on there. Something else is steering the machine. Something else is driving the boat in our heads. And so that's when the work of Waking Times really, the last 10 years, we just turned 10 years old at Waking Times, but the work that we've done at Waking Times really connects with the individual, like the quality and the power of the individual right now, because what I've talked about for years at Waking Time since the beginning is that, we live in a heavily mind-controlled, indoctrinated, socially engineered, propagandized, just unnatural environment. A lot of that shows up in media, but a lot of it shows up in the official rules and the world that we live in, and the way that the corporations, seek to always access, seek to always work their way deeper into our lives and take more and more from us and provide us less and less. It's a whole culture of exploitation and manipulation, right? That's what we're living under. And we're generations deep in this. We're literally several generations deep. It really began with TV. TV has to be like the most dangerous weapon ever invented, because what TV does, what it's done from the beginning, in the 40s, whenever it started really becoming popularized, it literally, when you look at a TV, it pulls your mind into a hypnotic state, right? It pulls your mind. Like, there's been studies that show that watching TV for even as little as 90 seconds can pull you into a hypnotized state of mind, into an alpha brainwave state of mind. So once that happens, a person's not analyzing the world in a critical or logical or reasonable way anymore, right? The information that they're receiving is passing through the conscious mind. It's passing through what we call the critical factor into the subconscious mind. And so once it gets into the subconscious mind, it really starts to develop what are known as pillars of beliefs. So beliefs about the society, beliefs about your life, beliefs about what's possible for you, beliefs about your self-image. These aren't things that live in our conscious mind. These are programs and patterns and ideas that live in our subconscious mind. So if you look at this subconscious mind as like something that lives in the basement, right? We don't have access. There's no stairwell to the basement, right? But it pushes up little bits of information telling us what decisions to make for ourselves, right? So if it's something the subconscious mind wants for you, it's going to send you a directive and you're going to act on it, consciously or not. Okay. So that's important to realize, because when somebody's making choices that counter what would be the logical, sane, rational choice to make, to be happy, the choice to be happy, whatever that entails to you. If that is a choice, but a person's not making that choice, that means that the alternative choice, the self-sabotaging behavior, is coming from a part of their mind that they're being driven by, that they don't understand or know how to use to their advantage. Okay. So that's when really, like, when you look at the type of messaging, the repetitive negative messaging that we see in our world that drives us to do things like, here's a few examples, drink alcohol. Alcohol's everywhere. Cigarettes, when they came out, there were cigarette advertisements everywhere. Doctors were telling you to smoke cigarettes. So you're constantly being bombarded by messages telling you that this is the safe behavior. This is what people in your tribe do. And so really the subconscious mind is nothing more than a safety and security seeking mechanism. And that's great when you're young and when you're a child, because as a child, you need to survive. The only way to survive as a child is by, mimicking, copying, and obeying what the adults are doing, because they're the ones that have the power to cook, to earn money, to, defense or whatever. And so when the subconscious mind is being programmed by these influences, it's always looking at what's safe. And it doesn't really matter if to the subconscious mind, if the behavior makes you happy or not. So we would say that the subconscious mind is a safety and security seeking mechanism when you're a child, but it's not a happiness seeking mechanism when you're an adult. Okay. So look around, people are desperately unhappy, right? They're being driven by these patterns to fit in. That's the main drive of the subconscious mind, is to fit in with the tribe around you. So the media as a whole, right, the whole environment that we're in, the culture that we're in, this culture of violence, the culture that, solves problems by going to fisticuffs with everything, the culture that has, almost every show and movie that there's shootings and shooting deaths, right? Endless wars in the real world here. We're the Orwellian permanent war just keeps going on and on and on and on and on. We look to violence, we look to self-destruction, we look to alcoholism, we look to soothing ourselves with food and narcotics, taking antidepressants. All of these are things that the subconscious mind thinks are the safest behaviors. So until someone really understands the depth of the programming in their own mind, until someone really understands how that part of the mind works and how they can retrain and reprogram and repattern that part of the mind, then you're always going to want to be happy, but it's going to be very difficult to actually make the choices, right? It's going to feel like you're going against the grain. It's going to feel like work. Exercise makes people happy, Patrick, but people don't do it. I don't know of anybody after a good workout, they're like, yeah, I feel worse. Right. But they don't do it. Right. They don't do it because in their mind, the safe behavior is to be overweight, is to go to the doctor when something goes wrong instead of, taking preventative care of your health or developing a strong, healthy immune system through diet and exercise. So the subconscious mind thinks that because what everybody else is doing, which is overeating, under-exercising, taking whatever drugs the doctor throws at them, that's the safest thing to do. And so the subconscious mind is really driving the boat. It's pushing people to make choices based on its own need to adhere to the safety net, the feeling of tribal safety it gets from being part of a group. It feels safe among that group. And never before in history have you seen this playing out with such dramatic effect as we see these days with COVID going on, because the things that people are doing, the ideas that people have right now about what should be done about this pandemic, the crisis, whatever it is, it doesn't to me that there actually is a medical emergency anymore, but the ideas that people have about what should be done about it, I can talk to people who will say they're willing to take as many boosters as it takes. What's the outcome? Till what outcome is achieved? Till the virus stops. The virus isn't going to stop, right? So people going along with these ideas that clearly could be risky to their health is a very clear symptom that many people are being driven by a part of themselves that they don't understand and that they don't have control over. So it's kind of a frightening, but also very, very fascinating time to be watching this.
That's a very, very good answer. And that is a really good, very, very sufficient answer, because, a lot of times you forget about that subconscious patterning. And you like someone like me who's been through it all and came out the other end. I want it to be simple, but I should remember my own journey was not simple, because I had to
never is.
dark night of the soul. And then I had to face all the demons inside of me, just that, and all the stuff coming up to the surface. I was not able to just suddenly jump from there into a happy, state of mind. I had to work through it and go through it. And
it's real.
Yeah, it's real. And and you really have to face down some stuff, but I don't ever want to detour anybody because it's a necessary part of your evolution here, especially if you want to obtain those goals. Happiness, you have to know these things. And that's what I think is so awesome about your studies and what you're doing right now. It is all self-sabotage, because I know that pattern very well. You know that pattern. Lynn, you know that pattern. It's all, we are the makers and bakers of our own crap. Makers and bakers. You like it?
Well, what Dylan opened my eyes to was the fact that, it's funny, I didn't even realize it, but I play a large part of my life as the victim, in the victim role, but once I realized that, well, it's ridiculous. Why would I be a victim? I don't want to be a victim. A victim sucks. Yeah. So I immediately it was almost like I didn't really have to do anything. Just a very awareness that I was being a victim kind of fixed itself, because then I would do something and I'd say, well, that's, why am I thinking that or doing that? That's, I started calling myself a crybaby. Let go of that, and I did. And so, and I'm not saying that I'm magically suddenly, living in whatever those higher states of letting go is, but I definitely, there's a definite difference happening right now. In other words, that stagnation logjam that is the reason I started this course in the first place. I really feel it breaking up. So
that's so cool to hear.
you have two, I mean, and you're going to have a big success story with Lynn. And, with me, I never went on the personal development course, but I was your first
You were my
student.
first legit coaching client. Yeah. Last year.
You had you had entangled my thinking patterns very efficiently and very well.
Interesting.
And, and I had to face down a lot of that stuff. I mean, these are all the reasons why they ever said I was on, they capitalize on your natural patterns, and instead of guiding you in ways to make you better, like what you do, they throw you Adderall, or they throw you, which is there. And let's be honest about what Adderall is. Adderall is meth. It's legalized meth. That's and same stuff, same effects.
It's pretty much the exact same molecule as crystal methamphetamine.
Exactly the same. So
I actually had a psychiatrist tell me that I asked him what Ritalin was, because I've been just diagnosed as ADD, ADHD, bipolar, whatever, manic, depressive, psychotic, whatever, dude. It's ridiculous. I mean, literally, like a doctor would just, some random MD, has the power to label you as psychotic. It's freaking retarded. But like, I actually had a psychiatrist tell me the first time that they put me on Ritalin, I was like, "Oh, what is Ritalin?" He literally said, it's like crystal methamphetamines, but it's really good stuff. I'm not even joking. Literally.
Yeah, so let's give it to children. Real good idea, right?
So it's the same thing. It's like, it was a high grade crystal methamphetamine.
Well, it's that, kind of a joke the DSM is, that the psychiatrists use, where they just lump together a certain set of symptoms and then just associate it with some sort of a pharmaceutical. I mean, literally published by Big Pharma.
Yeah, I mean, that's to me, that's part of the trap. It's part of the dragnet, right? It's part of the externalization of your power. It's part of the usurping power from people, telling them that there's something wrong with them, and then monopolizing the solution. I mean, that's exactly what you have with COVID, right? Oh, something's wrong with you guys. I mean, most people don't get it, and most people recover from it real quickly, but they're out there telling you that something's wrong with you, and then monopolizing the solution, telling you that it's the only solution. At the same time, they suppress all kind of different treatments. I don't even want to go into that, but like, there's a whole freaking basket of other possible treatments and ways to overcome the actual illness of COVID, whatever it is, whether it's a bioweapon, whatever it could be, right? Or super flu, whatever you want to call it, right? And so that's how this particular system works. I mean, on every level, it usurps power from individuals, right? It's even like, it's much bigger and much more complex than any kind of like communist or socialist thing that we've ever had. It literally is, people use the term matrix, and I've certainly used that term a lot in my writing and work at Waking Times, but very much is a way of stealing people's power, but basically, and how it does steal people's power is it tells them that there's something wrong, and then tells them that there's a solution. It's the Hegelian dialectic, right? Problem, reaction, solution. And so that's been going on, especially with like the health and mental health area for really decades now. I mean, if you go in and you look at, just like the markets, the financial, the financial economic markets for certain classes of prescription medicines, statin drugs or, psychotropic drugs, right? If you look at like the data on how these numbers grow, like they're businesses, it's business models, like, with companies with stockholders and shareholders, like they're beholden to persistent, ever continuous growth, right?
Kind of like Pfizer, huh?
Yeah, I mean, speaking directly, absolutely to Pfizer. Yeah, I don't know. You're probably going to get censored on this, but I mean, that's a whole nother story. I mean, and to steal people's power, it's like you live in an environment all of a sudden where people are advocating censorship, right? They're advocating less power, less control over their own lives. They're advocating to be shielded, protected from now information, from ideas, right? And so we're deep into this. Like, it's really, like I said, it's a fascinating time, because at the same time you have technology, the capacity, the power, the possibility with technology is mushrooming right now. I mean, we're so close to the singularity. So it's easy to be stuck in this perspective that the world is overly complex or dangerous or scary or out of control kind of place. But there's a lot of things going on. And when a person, like this is what it comes down to, the individual. When a person recognizes and accepts the responsibility of having personal power, right? What does that even mean, right? What does it mean to have personal power, right? It means you don't look at an authority figure. You don't look to an authority figure before you look to your own intuition, to your own guidance, right? You don't look outside of yourself for leadership on decisions that you can make on your own, right? You don't accept the limitations and the restrictions, right? Cancer, I think, is a good way to look at that. Like animals throughout nature, they intuitively heal themselves by doing different things. Some will hibernate, go into holes. Some of them will lick their wounds, right? Like animals intuitively know how to heal themselves from disease. Well, humans do too. And so a lot of people intuitively have the sense that they would want to try, holistic or naturopathic, ways of confronting a cancer diagnosis. So there's people that have overcome cancer by switching to a raw diet, or people that have overcome it by trying vitamin C infusions, whatever it is, right? But there's a whole host of possibilities, and having being in tune with your, having an awakened sense of inner authority, of power, like having an empowered perspective on your own life means that like you have the courage to be like, you know what, the FDA says this treatment is off limits. I may have to go to Mexico for this or whatever, but I'm in my own power. I can do what it takes. I'll overcome what it takes. I'll do what's right for me, what I feel is right for me. So it's about not letting an exterior forces color your idea, your understanding, like your natural innate wisdom and guidance systems. So
basically, and it comes down to this. I had a show with Carissa, Tom Montauk's girlfriend, and we, the conclusion she's always reached, and I can't help but see it, and I want to double check with you too, if you see it this way too. Awareness is essentially everything, no matter in every way, shape, and form. Awareness is literally everything, to overcoming your self-sabotage, to overcoming the, we've all been conditioned from birth to throw our trust to these authority figures. You taught that from a young age, from until you literally have the awareness to go, well, maybe this authority figure isn't have my best interest at heart, so, or maybe my thinking isn't, so you suddenly have awareness. When I went through my awakening, the first thing that happened was my self-awareness went from like hypnotic trance to just boom, and there was a flow of everything that happened since then that brought me to where I am today. And it all began with that awareness. You won't even have the ability to look inside without some sufficient level of self-awareness. So would you say that awareness is key?
It's certainly is a major part of it, but I feel like there's more to it than just awareness. Just listening to how you're describing it, like, I think the other half, it's almost like if it rides tandem with inspiration, then you'll get there, right? Mm-hmm. So awareness mixed, coupled with inspiration, is what's going to actually propel you to growth, to transformation, to positive transformation, right? Like awareness in and of itself is just,
I can see that. Yeah.
It doesn't take you anywhere. I have
an awareness of somewhere great that I want to go.
But if you don't have the inspiration, the inspiration, which will ultimately get you to that state of courage I spoke of, if you don't have that, if you don't have the courage to act upon the inspiration, then the awareness alone isn't going to do anything for you. I think that's evident. And just like, this is a phenomenon that I'm familiar with working with Waking Times over the last 10 years. When the internet came online, it was like all of a sudden we had access to all the good information, all the good ideas, all the spiritual practices, all the different meditations, all the superfoods, all of the vitamin D, all the prescription, the natural prescriptions for everything. Like these are all of a sudden we had of these, like every tradition of the world, all of a sudden we could reach out and go to any part of the world, and learn like their traditions, right? Their ways of connecting with spirit. But people don't change. People don't change unless they're inspired to change. People don't actually pursue those paths until somebody that's on that path comes into their life. And for whatever reason, there's an energetic exchange to where that person pulls them along, pulls them out of their stagnant states, gets them to a state of inspiration. So when their awareness mixes with inspiration, that's when the magic really has an opportunity to happen.
That's that makes sense. It really does. Because like I just said, especially in my cases, many times. And I'm sure, with Lynn, it's like, we could have, and I know Lynn, you will understand that, you could have all the awareness of the places you want to go, but not necessarily know how to get there. But at least you wouldn't have gotten that far if you didn't have the self-awareness. So Lynn, when it came to, because I had reached out to you and said, hey, do some videos with me. And this is at the same time that you are working with Dylan. Would you say that synchronicity had a big role to play there?
Very much so. I've heard of synchronicity, and I've not necessarily, I've always thought there was something to it, but and I've maybe had it a little bit in my life at times, but this time, this particular between you and Dylan, there was something there for sure. And I've yet to put my finger on it, but yes, the answer is.
Yeah, well, it was palpable on my end.
That's your internal guidance system, right? It's your internal guidance system. Like, if you were to get in your car and pop in your GPS to get, figure out how to get to the other side of the state, to get to grandma's house, once you got close to grandma's house, you'd start seeing, oh, this looks familiar. It looks like grandma's house, like, oh, okay, right. I recognize this mountain or whatever it is, right? Like you're on the right path. Like you're on your way there, right? It's going to be familiar to you. Your own system is going to show you the way, right? Like just keep following the signs.
Right.
So Dylan, where are you going from here, man? What's next in Dylan Charles's personal world? I know that you got the personal development, you're going to work on that, but what's next for you? Where are your goals? Where do you want to accomplish?
That's a good question. I like having been an entrepreneur since 2009, 2010, I guess was the first business that I started, which was a yoga retreats business, which was a lot of fun. But being an entrepreneur, my focus has been basically on developing, this is for the last year, really developing a way that will allow me to serve people in the way that fills up my heart and soul, right? But that also supports myself and my family. So my main goal right now is to really unlock in my own personal life this spirit of reciprocity, or Aini, and as it would be called in some South American indigenous traditions, but to really unlock this force, one of the cosmic rules of reciprocity. When you put energy out into the world, you get energy back into the world. And so this year has really been a challenge for me. It's been challenging for me to let go of a lot of old ways of doing things, but I've successfully been through, I've successfully pulled off a lot of hat tricks this year. I've been able to let go of a lot of old ways of thinking, a lot of old ways of doing things. I've taken a lot of risks that I wasn't willing to take over the last few years. And so I've really been making a sincere effort this year to understand what value I have to bring into the world as a leader and perhaps as a teacher, right? Because the thing that's really ignited my soul and really just lit me up over the last 10 years is the work I've done with plant medicines. I've been a facilitator in a couple of retreat centers working with both of the traditions, Iboga and ayahuasca. And so I've had the opportunity to work with literally hundreds of people who come to those medicines for healing and hold space for them, make medicine for them, serve medicine to them, sing, counsel, listen, and just be present for these massive transformations that people have in a very short period of time. And that's really where my heart and soul was. That feels a little bit out into the future for me again, working closely with plant medicines, because I don't do that stuff in the United States. The traditions I work with are not here, and it's not a thrill-seeking thing for me, but my heart and soul really is with the work of shamanic plant medicines. And in order to integrate what I've learned from those, and in order to actually move up and advance my understanding of the power of those medicines, I have to integrate some of the things that I've learned over the last few years of journeying with those medicines, which boils down to that I have to step fully into my power. My power as a leader, my power as a teacher, my power as a visionary, my power as someone who's put on this earth to do good and help people, and in such a way that unlocks some of the secrets of the universe. Like I said, this cosmic law of reciprocity, right? So this year I'm going to be focused on dialing in programs that I'm building to help people grow and evolve, help people to break through the stagnation. I have a very unique perspective on life energy. I have a really rich, colorful background when it comes to, being stuck in self-sabotage, becoming my own worst enemy. And so I see a lot of people in those situations now. And so I'm recognizing, I really focused this year on understanding what my gift is. And I'm really starting to see clearly what my gift is. And so, the goal for me professionally this year is absolutely going to be to figure out, to keep pushing forward ways in which to make my gift accessible to the world, so that way I can get the joy out of experiencing the work that I do with people. So, like, for example, working with Lynn, it's ridiculous how much I get out of it. It's absolutely ridiculous how much joy, how much peace, how much happiness I get when I get off the phone with Lynn or one of my other clients. I mean, it's when you really pay attention to what brings you joy, what brings you happiness, Patrick, like if you're really paying attention, like there's a couple of things that you do in your life that really just move you beyond other experiences. And to be so honest, like just the experience that I have in working and coaching with people is fills me up more than anything I've ever done. I've done a lot of interesting different things, but like this work actually really brings my heart and soul like a lot of joy. So yeah, my main goal this year is pushing that as far as I can push it in 2022. Personally, I'm kind of at a crossroads with some of my own self-sabotaging behavior. You know, I'm always, you know, like we're all have in no way like claim to be like healed or perfect or anything like that. And so a big part of this, big part of my goals this year is to use like the work that I'm doing as a more catalyst and more inspiration to even overcome myself even more and more. So I'm always working on myself as well. So it very much is about the journey, the progress, and not perfection, if you will. And so, yeah. So what does that mean for me? Like, I've really been diving deeply into my practice of Kung Fu recently. You know, I've been doing it for a long time, and I've been getting back into it. Like it kind of ebbs and flows at times. And like the joy that I get out of the feeling of being that strong, that capable, that focused, really brings a lot to my life. And it really affects positively how I show up for my family, my children and whatnot. So yeah, the very short answer, I give you the long answer. Let me give you the short answer. I'm going to be like having fun with my business, helping as many people as I can, and then taking good care of myself and working to be strong and badass.
Awesome. Well, that's probably, oh, go ahead, Doug.
I was going to ask, do you see yourself at some point maybe having a community of teachers that you kind of lead on this same program?
That's a really interesting question. I mean, it's time to envision things, Lynn. It's time to set vision. It's the end of the year. You know, it's a couple weeks till the new year. So it is a time to set some visions into motion. And I hadn't thought of it quite like that. My dream is to open or basically like buy into one of the retreat centers, the shamanic plant medicine retreat centers that I've worked at. You know, both of them are located in Costa Rica. And so that's my dream. My dream is to serve medicine and help people on that level. But to get from there to here, I feel like there's a lot that I need to learn about people. There's a lot that I need to learn about what I'm capable of. And so, yeah, so a big idea like that about training other people is certainly worth contemplation. I think at the moment I feel like I need another year or so to just really pay attention to developing the understanding of what specifically I have to offer people. What is my unique voice in this personal development space? I'm not a Tony Robbins, you know, I'm not someone who channels, you know, some off-planet being, right? So I'm just a very, very real, raw, uncensored human being who is, I know I have a gift. And so I think for the time being, my purpose right now is to understand, to develop a deeper understanding of what that gift is and how it can be of service to people. So once I get maybe more clarity and more experience with that, Lynn, I think that it would be fun. I think that it would be it would bring me a lot of joy to work with people and expand out and work in a more of a high level capacity. Yeah.
Oh, awesome. Well, I mean, I couldn't ask for anything more. Lynn, do you have anything to,
Oh, I think that was great.
Yeah.
I think it was good timing too, because I'm right in the middle of the program. So it was kind of interesting to hear a different view of what I'm going through here, you know.
Interesting. Yeah, that's cool. Yeah, Lynn, I really appreciate you. And Patrick, I appreciate you as well, man. You guys are righteous human beings. Thank you for having me on this.
We love you, Dylan. You're awesome.
Yeah.
So, and I just want to say thanks again so much for coming on. You're doing us a good service because we're trying to get all started. So it's all part of the personal development. This is it in action, quite literally, is it not? So
yeah, I mean, if you're not, I mean, at this point, like, let me just finish up by saying this, like, look around, like if you haven't figured out that like the world outside of you is not going to get any better, it's not necessarily going to change, right? If you're still looking at all that, if you're still spending your time like going down rabbit holes and stuff, you're missing the message, right? The message is that like your time here is limited. Make the most of it. Do what you can do everything that you can possibly do to make your life amazing and joyous and be a positive impact to other people. So
awesome. Dylan Charles, everybody. Well, thanks again, Dylan. And for everyone who's watching, I'll put up all the information that you need to get in touch with Dylan, his website and some other stuff. And please reach out to him. His information will be on the screen. and get in touch if you need any type of real results when it comes
Yeah,
to
and,
personal development.
and I'll say too, like there's a live Zoom event that I'm doing January 5th.
Yes, January 5th.
It's called Crack the Code of Self-Sabotage. Like I'll be making that accessible to people. And then I'm going to start another group of the Your Original Soul program that I'm running with Lynn. I'm going to start that probably January 11th. Still got to get the materials ready to start sharing that with folks. But so, yeah, I mean, my goal is going to be on producing and creating programs and opportunities for people to heal and evolve. So, yep.
For those who were fans of Dr. Randall and myself, just know that my recommendation of Dylan is because he is like the entire package, everything that you would ever want out of a personal development coach, including just being such a personable and sweet individual, and very professional, and just an awesome all-around guy. So once again, thank you, Dylan. Thanks for coming on. Thanks for sharing everything with us. And Lynn, thank you for allowing me to put you on the spot there a little bit with regards to your work with Dylan. And we will see everyone next episode. Thanks again.